are there any downsides to having a multivitamin? Am I to lose something if I start taking multivitamins?
You have to lose money if you're not taking the right supplement that is
Of
there.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, and because it's for a long period of time, you're losing a lot of money, right?
Right.
That is number one.
I could maybe say that I'm buying health and not losing money. So it's one positive way to think about it. Yeah, that's
Correct.
the number one question people start thinking that, yeah, why do I need to get so much of monthly recurring cost when I have to buy supplements? But practically speaking, what I've understood is I'm eating food to fill my stomach and get these nutrients. And if I'm not getting that, that itself is food. So yeah, it hits you the first time, but then it kind of becomes a ritual. So I wouldn't say that I'm losing money on it.
Correct. And if you try to get your diet evaluated, most of us think that, okay, we are eating healthy. Nobody thinks that they are super unhealthy, right? We all think that we are doing our best and we are having good food. If you get it evaluated, you will come to know of so many gaps that could be there in the diet. And once you realize that, taking a multivitamin makes sense. It's like an insurance. So you
Against the
don't
disease, so
really.
you prevent disease in a way.
Correct.
And so, how do I approach this? I get my diet evaluated, and I now know that, let's say, on this so and so date, I am short of these nutrients by this portion. Then, how does it work? Am I going to get a dose of supplement or a plan or a routine which I need to follow for lifetime? How does it work?
There are two ways of looking at it. If you have a very constant lifestyle where you are having the same routine, so your requirement is going to almost be constant unless something major happens. What I mean is, for example, if there's a woman who is 18 plus who's an adult, and the requirement of these nutrients is going to fairly remain constant till she is 50 years old, unless she becomes pregnant, so her requirements would change. She is breastfeeding, then her requirements would change. If she starts playing a sport, her physical activity increases, then her requirements change. Apart from that, it is more or less a constant set of nutrients that we need in certain amounts, which is the RDA. So once you get evaluated, you know what the gaps are. You try to fill those gaps through food. Whatever remains is going to remain irrespective of making any kind of change. So supplements is something that you might require for a long period of time, unless it's a clinical deficiency. If there's a clinical deficiency, the doctor will try to curb it at the moment. So it will be a rapid dose that is given for
Something
1
like a
month, 2 months.
2 month or a 3 week or something like
Correct,
that. Yeah.
correct, yes. And then you are good to go. Your body is replenished with all of these vitamins and minerals.
Reserves. Yeah.
But to maintain that daily amount so that you don't fall back in that same loop, you might most likely require supplements for a longer period of time. A lot of people take supplements, which is actually a good habit, indefinitely. Because nothing is going to change in your diet, nothing is going to change in your lifestyle. Miraculously, their body reserves are not going to
Replenish itself.
Yeah.
So age is not a factor when you say that 18 plus to 50, and if my lifestyle is constant, I'm doing the exact same thing from morning till night, my nutrient requirement doesn't change is what you're trying to tell me. Age is a factor, multiple concerns. If I develop a disease or something, it's a factor. These are all factors where I require
And then there are
correction.
some external factors where you're taking certain medications. So the side effect of the
Right.
medication is depletion of nutrients,
Yes.
right? Like we
You
talked
spoke about
about
metformin, yeah.
metformin, yeah. So those are external stimuli to reduction in the nutrients. But apart from that, what the ICMR says, the RDA is pretty much constant for adults. It is varying for various age groups of children. So at birth, for a few months, their RDAs are different, then it changes, then it increases. In the adulthood, it is fairly constant. And then when you are a senior, then the requirements change again, because a lot of metabolism also reduces, the requirement also reduces, the body is slowing down a little.
And is the RDA same for an Indian and somebody living abroad, or the body type, or how does it? The RDA has to be different for these different body types, right?
Yes, so ICMR has defined these guidelines along with National Institute of Nutrition. These requirements are for Indian. If you look at what the requirement is for somebody in the US, the guidelines are different there. This is based on what our ethnicity is. Apart from that, the food habits, the structure, how we are built.
Body structure,
Yes, so all of them play an important role in defining which vitamin do we need as a population. So it is different from what you would be require if you are in the US and you are a native of US. Somebody who is an Indian who is staying there, they are still Indian, they are still native to Indian, so they still need what the Indian RDAs are.
I get my B12 levels low, I go to a doctor, and the doctor most likely will give me an injection for replenishing the reserves. And so, what happens after that? Like you rightly pointed, I need to go to a nutritionist, get evaluated for my diet, and understand why the B12 was low in the first case, right? And then I get some dietary supplementation, if I'm not mistaken. So, when I take these dietary supplements, is the dose that I'm going to get at that very first meet going to be the same throughout, or will it change with a certain frequency?
So there is something called a clinical dose and something called a maintenance dose. A clinical dose is something which is in a higher quantity which is required to combat that deficiency. Maintenance dose is something where we take a dietary supplement which is helping us maintain the level so that we don't have the clinical deficiency again. So clinical dose is always going to be higher than the maintenance dose, and most of the supplements, they are only approved to sell the maintenance dose of the nutrients, right? So maintenance dose is lower, but it is required throughout to maintain those levels in the body. So most probably the dietary supplements that you have been given, they are not going to be tapered down over time. They are required to maintain, so they'll be the ones that you constantly require.
Okay. So that I need to keep continuing. So yeah, that's about B12. But then are all the nutrients going to be continuing the same way? So just one visit to the nutritionist after that, and I'm good to go for the entire life, is what you're trying to tell me.
Technically, if you're going to stick to that one single diet for your entire lifetime, which is not possible, then yes, you can continue with the same supplements. But there are a lot of factors like the diets keep changing, the requirement of the body keeps changing. You might have certain diseases, you might take certain kinds of antibiotics, certain kinds of medications. All of them require a revisit and checking the what kind of supplements are required. It's would be a good practice. So go to a doctor, they'll check what is required. They will give you the supplements. Then when you talk to the nutritionist, they give you a maintenance dose, and then you get re-evaluated for those through blood test. So generally, if you take a clinical dose of, say for example, vitamin D, for 8 weeks you're taking the 60,000 IU of vitamin D. It is going to sit in your body for a longer time because those are fat soluble nutrients.
Right.
So there are two types of vitamins, fat soluble and water soluble. Water soluble are not stored in the body for a long time, whereas the fat soluble vitamins stay in the body for longer. They dissolve in the fat basically, and then they are slowly released in the body. So you don't need replenishment of fat soluble that frequently when you compare it to water soluble supplements. Basis this, probably the dosing, the frequency might change for the supplement. So the first diet and the first set of supplements that are given by the nutritionist might not always be valid. You might need to get re-evaluated with the changes that happen, and probably the dosing might change.
So would you say that if I'm exercising or my routine keeps changing, so is it a good thumb rule to say that maybe revisit the dose of your supplements every quarter or every 6 months? What's the frequency looking like? What's a good practice that you recommend?
The good practice would be every quarter, because there are a lot of clinical studies that have been done on multivitamins, and it takes around 3 months for the body to really start benefiting out of taking these vitamins and minerals constantly. So 3 months is the minimum that you will require to take one set or one routine, get into a routine of a supplement. And then maybe if, like you're saying, you're playing a sport, and if the physical activity increases, you might want to revisit the nutritionist and update them about this has changed. So probably they would adjust the dose of maybe a protein that you're taking, or the requirements may also change because there is the calorie requirement would change. So calorie comes through food. So the food requirement is changing. So your meal plan is changing. So to complement it, the supplement plan might change as well.
So let's say I'm weight X and I need to gain 5 kgs of my weight. So to get to 5 kgs of my weight would be a kind of a diet. And when I'm on or at 5 kgs, then my diet would be different and I need to maintain, let's say, the 5 kgs. And that's how the supplements would also change. Right. So a quarter is what you're giving me as a thumb rule. Here is one more
That is
question that,
also,
yeah,
yeah, so
please, yes,
that
tell me.
is also one of the things to keep in mind. People who are trying to lose weight have to cut down on calories. That is like the basic rule. So when they're cutting down on the calories, they are also cutting down on the food basically. So they are cutting down on the essential vitamins and minerals
Mm,
as well. They are
mm,
most likely to be deficient in a lot of
mm.
multivitamins. People who are trying to lose weight, who are eating less, might have a lot of symptoms like they feel tired, they feel irritable, they
Right.
feel very
Exactly.
lethargic.
Yes.
That is also because you're getting less nutrients. If you are taking less amount of food which is required when you're trying to lose weight, at least supplement the
The
nutrients that are
nutrients.
required with good quality supplements, so that all of you don't end up losing weight and also have clinical deficiencies staring at you.
Like whenever you see these ads which are promoting that, okay, hungry kya and you eat this bar and you're all great, that's not completely true. So you get the food or the hunger pang is solved for that, but the nutrient deficiencies is not solved. That's a different use case. Although the other question that I get from a lot of people when I keep talking about this is that there are, whenever you scroll Instagram or you're on Facebook or when you go to the airport or wherever, you get bombarded with tons of ads about multivitamins with amazing packaging, great content on the website, right? And sometimes even celebrities endorsing them. And then you mentioned that a lot of multivitamins or all these multivitamins are non-standard. There is no rule to call a multivitamin a multivitamin. Something could have 3 vitamins in it and still be called as a multivitamin. Something would with a 5 or a 4 plus vitamin could also be called a multivitamin. So now how do I know? Do I look at the brand? Do I look at some kind of a logo, an ISI mark sort of a thing on something and then say that this is correct? How do I choose the right multivitamin?
Okay. First thing to always look at is the nutrition label. It will have the list of all the nutrients. So generally when you see most of the vitamins that you see in the market would have vitamins and minerals both in them. So I'm
Okay,
accounting for both
right.
multivitamin, multi-mineral. Both
Mineral.
come as a multivitamin. Right? For
Mm.
the discussion sake, look at all the vitamins and minerals which are present in that particular multivitamin and look at the RDA that is you are getting through this particular multivitamin. So, for example, a multivitamin which has got 30 things in it. All the vitamins, all the minerals, all the micro minerals, also some
Herbs
amino
also there, yeah.
acids,
Right.
everything. So, those, if you look at the percentage RDA, you might see that only 1%, 2%, 5% of the RDA or the requirement is met through that particular pill. That is something we should not go for. We want to be as close to the RDA as possible so that our chances of nutrition gaps or these deficiencies is lower. We are trying to get the maximum of the nutrients through the pill. So something which is on the higher side, trying to aim for something which gives you 100% RDA is the best. So that you are ensured that, okay, this is giving me the entire amount that I require for the day of this mineral, this vitamin, all of those things. If you're getting somewhere around 5%, 10%, consider it as nothing. You're not
Consider it
getting
as
that.
zero. Yeah.
It's not going to really
Okay.
impact you in any way. So aiming for something which is close to 100% RDA, even if the number of vitamins and minerals is less, is preferable than going for something which has got all sorts of stuff, but it has got everything in very minute quantities. That is number one. The second thing is look at the serving size. Serving size is something that how much of that particular vitamin, mineral, syrup, whatever is
Right.
required by you to be taken every single time.
Mm.
And sometimes you will be, I've seen supplements, multivitamins, which will give you 100% RDA. But you have to take 5 of those capsules every single day to meet that 100% RDA, which is practically impossible.
Impossible.
Yeah, so the RDAs that are mentioned on the label are generally RDA with respect to the serving size. So we want the smallest of the serving size and highest of the RDA. It should be a convenient method or serving size to have. one capsule, maybe 2. Okay. 5 is practically impossible. Imagine taking 5 capsules of something to get 100% of RDA. Who's going to comply? Right? Look at the serving size. The lowest possible serving size is the best. And for that particular serving size, trying to get the highest RDA. These are the 2 things you should look for in the nutrition label. The third thing is you should stay away from too good to be true claims. So there are a lot of clinical studies that have been done on multivitamins to understand what the health benefits of them are. And apart from trying to fill in the dietary nutritional gaps, there is no particular miraculous advantage of taking a supplement. So supplements have been studied for longevity, and the results are inconclusive. Taking a multivitamin versus not taking a multivitamin, if the 2 groups that have been evaluated for them, the longevity is not impacted by if you're taking a multivitamin or not. So stay away from claims like which are very
Help you live
magical and
longer, or
helps you
make you
stay.
look younger.
Yeah, all
Magically
of the
will grow your
most of
hair
the
back.
supplements.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the supplements have not been tested clinically. They are not mandated to be clinically tested
Okay. But they
before
can make
going
these
into the
claims.
market. Yeah, and then they get into all those lawsuits and stuff. That is a separate topic. But yeah, so you don't need
Yes.
compulsorily getting a clinical trial done before launching a multivitamin. Just treat multivitamins as something that are helping you bridge those those nutrient gaps. Apart from that, don't consider them to be doing anything else. Any product which is being marketed as something very magical should be stayed away from. The fourth thing is try to purchase clean label supplements. By
Yes.
clean label, I mean least number of excipients, right? So every capsule, tablet, gummies, anything that you are taking will have an active ingredient. For example, it will have all of these multivitamins and minerals in them. But they will also have a lot of other things which make them a capsule, a gummy, or something. So something which is a flavoring agent.
The
If
bulk,
you're
yeah.
taking a syrup, but something which is a bulking agent, because you need all of these in mgs. Actually, if you look at the pill that would come out after only mixing all of these vitamins and minerals would be very tiny to ingest or take. Well, practically
Right.
not possible to handle those little quantity. So you need bulking agents. Then you need something which coloring agents, right? Flavoring agents. All of these are
These are called
required
excipients.
preservatives. Yes, these
Okay.
are all excipients which are not the main product, but they are used to make something the way it looks.
We need to deeply discuss this part in one of the next episodes that we do. I think this is a burning problem that you see so many things on the labels and you're not able to understand anything. So we should do a segment of this definitely.
Yeah, clean label supplements, something which as basic as saying that does not contain colorants, added flavors and all of those. These are
Right.
some basic good to have supplements. The other thing is you should never buy supplements which have got incomplete information on them. How
And
can
that's allowed.
there are a lot of products, especially when you look at calcium supplements. You might not always find the source of calcium in it. Which salt of it is it? Calcium citrate, calcium carbonate. Because all of these have very different properties from solubility, from absorption. Everything is very different about these salts. The supplements which do not mention what kind of salt they are using. For example, they are just writing calcium this much mg. Which calcium, which salt of it? Magnesium, which form? If that is not present, you should stay away from those incomplete looking supplements as well. Most of the good standard pharmaceutical brands and good nutraceutical brands will not do this, but if at all you see such supplements which have got incomplete information, you definitely stay away from them.
Right.
Also, try to prefer something which has got some brand which has got third party certification, which is not mandatory, right? Because they are not drugs, they are considered food, and the regulations around them are very loose. But it is up to the manufacturer, right, to ensure good quality of the supplement. So there are certain good quality manufacturers and brands who go ahead and get third party certifications done, like they are USP certified or FDF certified, GMP certified. All of these certifications try to ensure that the product is of a good quality, will have good efficacy. right? Prefer good reputed pharmaceutical, nutraceutical brands. Don't get carried away or lured with good looking packaging or good, very tempting Instagram ads. They might not work. There is no regulation to actually see how good they are technically. And the last thing is, don't self-prescribe supplements. It is a lot of work, honestly speaking, and it is not as simple as medicines, because medicines you are definitely going to take it via the doctor, right? These
Right.
supplements, because they are so readily available and they can so readily be made by manufacturers. All sorts of qualities are available, and they're not cheap. From quality point of view, there could be supplements which could have heavy metal traces in them, pesticide traces in them, because nobody's checking. You can still launch that product and it can sell well. But when we are so conscious about what kind of shampoo we are using, it should be paraben free, SNS free, and all of those things which are really important. It is much more important to take supplements which we are taking, we are ingesting. They should also be of top notch quality, otherwise, it's better not to take them in the first place. Always take an expert's help in designing supplement plans for you so that you can get the best out of the supplements.
Right. You keep highlighting contacting an expert about it. I can understand the maths that goes behind it. Let me ask you a very basic thing that I observe when I get all these ads from new age brands that are delivering them, and with no disrespect to the new D2C brand. In fact, we are also starting a new health company. But how has it been so easy post COVID to come up with your own supplement? So, has the government come up with something which makes it super easy to do this, or what's going on there? I see every other brand launching health supplements, and there are suddenly hundreds of brands to choose from.
Like I said, there is something called a Drugs and Cosmetics Act. When I say drugs and cosmetics, even launching a cosmetic in India, it is as tedious to launch them as it is for medicines. It is the same act. But when it comes to supplements, they're considered as food, and so they don't come under this act. So there are a lot of regulations that do not need to be followed. So if you
Okay.
have to launch even a generic medicine, there are a lot of certifications required, quality checks which are required for the drug, for the method by which they are being made, the dosage, the final product that is being made. It undergoes so many quality checks, efficacy tests. None of them can be launched without a clinical trial. Everything is, whatever medicines we get in the market have been clinically approved. Only then you get them. But when it comes to supplements, they are not drugs. Yes. So the whole problem is that everything around food is very loose. If you have to launch something in the food category, even that is super simple. So you would also see a lot of snack D2C companies also popping up, because they do not really require a lot of, it's not a very tedious process. You don't require so many licenses, checks, etc. So that is the reason, because it is considered as food, dietary supplement. So they are considered a part of diet. And that is the reason they are not considered pharmaceutical, and they do not require so many tests. Hence, because it's so easy to build a business out of it, people are doing it. But having said that, there are a lot of good quality manufacturers as well, who make it a point, even if it is not mandatory, they make it a point that these third party testings are done. They get additional licenses. They make sure that the efficacy is maintained. Some brands also get clinical trials done, which is very, very expensive, by the way. But they get it done because they believe that quality is important. So there are all
Right.
sorts of players in the market. We have to be smart enough to spot the good quality supplements out of the bad and then take them.
So I know that you have worked at Pfizer and you have worked in Zydus as well. Dumb question, but if I want to go ahead and launch a supplement brand, what should I be doing? Because it's suddenly so easy to do that. How are all these folks able to get into this, learn the art? Majority of them are not experts at it. They are just business owners, which is okay. But then what's happening there is, are there many manufacturers in India now, or is it just branding? How is it working on that front?
India is a very big player in terms of contract manufacturing. Right? When it comes to drugs, pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, manufacturing is India's forte, right? We manufacture for...
Nutraceuticals is health supplements, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We export, we do a lot of work for big companies throughout the world, so which is called third party manufacturing or contract manufacturing. So that is very prevalent in India. When it comes to pharmaceuticals, the regulations are so stringent for if they're exporting and they're making something for the US or the EU, Europe markets, the regulations are very stringent. So by default, that plant or the manufacturing facility is going to be very good. They have
It's
to be
good
certified.
quality. Right.
Yeah, and then they, whatever is produced there in that, even if it is nutraceuticals, they're going to be good quality because anyways they by default have the certifications. But what happens with a lot of nutraceutical brands is that it is basically contract manufacturing which is done by some local players which might not be certified. They don't need to be certified, and all the brands are procuring from the same company and just labeling, branding it as their own and selling it. Yeah,
Okay.
so mostly most of the brands that you see, the D2C players are not the original manufacturers of the product. They're all getting it done, made through the same select few manufacturing
Manufacturers, yeah.
companies. And we
Differently.
just,
Just like how
yeah,
people get t-shirts made in Tirupur or Ludhiana or somewhere else. Now you
yeah.
can go ahead and get your own supplements done from these
So
contract
it's
manufacturers.
like the manufacturers have a catalog. So I make this. What do you want to buy? So the D2C
They've made
players
this
would...
even easier. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can just select and then you can give your labeling, packaging. They can do it as per your custom requirements, and then you can just go ahead and launch it. Then that is not the problem actually. The problem is that these players, the manufacturers who are making this, they are not certified. They
I
don't
get it.
need to be certified, so they're not certified. Whereas if there are certain manufacturers who have to be certified because they are making it for somebody in the US or making it for bigger companies like for Pfizer, for Zydus, if they're making certain products for them, they have to by default be top notch in terms of their quality. But then they have bigger MOQs, so you have to go with smaller players who don't abide by the quality. So that's the whole reason. And because there is no check happening, a lot of these products are out in the market. India is very big on herbal supplements, and there are a lot of companies who in the US and in Europe who strictly do not take any supplements which are manufactured by India because of the same thing, that they might not be tested and they are by default going to be very high on heavy metals. Heavy metal testing is something, an additional step that a supplier needs to do to make sure that they're not, and it is an added cost, right? By default, certain companies have banned Indian companies or manufacturers from exporting,
Herbal
especially
supplements.
yes, because
Interesting.
our groundwater very high in all of these leachings and stuff. If the testing is not done, by default, our supplements are going to be higher on these heavy metals.
Great.
So
So I also remember our discussion about heavy metals and fish oil. I remember I was given fish oil by the doctor, and you told me that we need to choose one with heavy metal testing certificate along with that. And I spoke about this also to a friend, and they were shocked, saying that okay, this one is cheap, it's around X 100 rupees, and this one is around 1,000 rupees, so it's a choice. And what happens when you go ahead, it's cancerous, right? Having metals in your fish capsules, and I'm taking that to prevent other disease, and I'm inviting other disease on the other hand. So it's crazy. So yeah, good tips on choosing the right multivitamins. I would want to end the discussion on multivitamins and discuss health supplements in the next episode that we do. Lots to discuss, especially how to read these nutrition labels and figure out those nasty written elements which a layperson doesn't understand at all. Thank you so much for discussing multivitamins, and I am now sure that I want to go ahead and consult an expert on choosing multivitamins. Before we wrap this up, I want to tell you about what Zarity does. We are a modern telehealth clinic. We have a panel of MD medicine doctors who will deep dive into your health records and try to find out the root cause of your symptoms and then treat it with medical, behavioral, and dietary interventions. And then we have a clinical nutritionist on our team, which is what Dwija is mostly speaking about. She has built that vertical from scratch, which is where she's an expert. So when you speak to our clinical nutritionist, we do not do normal diet consults. So you do not come to us when you are just looking for a fancy diet or different types of salad. You essentially come to us for something like deficiency, or when your lab report shows parameters that are deranged. This is when our expert nutritionist factor in. Of course, you can reach out to us for problems like weight management, which is weight loss and weight gain. We don't just follow the calorie deficit diet, but we go deep into balancing out nutrients in your diet as well. With that note, I would like to end this episode, and let's do the next one in detail further. Thank you so much for being here.